I never saw such beautiful landscaping.
You own a landscaping business. You're incredible.
You're listening to the Outdoor Project Podcast. Hear real conversations with leaders in the hardscape and landscape industry. Listen on Spotify or watch behind the scenes and more on YouTube. This podcast is sponsored by Alliance. Quality products formulated for all of your hardscaping needs. Glues, sands, edging, and more from Alliance.
It's good. You ever been on a podcast?
I have.
You have. Didn't you guys start? When we did Greg, I think he started a podcast. Were you on his podcast?
He did. I have not been on Greg's podcast.
Wow.
No.
So he still has it going.
He does. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
So
You know what?
You haven't been on
Actually,
his podcast.
well, he
feel lucky.
he talks about it's all to existing customers, so it's not
Oh,
really
okay.
employees, that type of thing. It's all about contractors, how they started in the business, and that type of a thing. So yeah, it's good stuff.
So right now we got Ed, the pond professor,
You got it.
on the Outdoor Project Podcast. Welcome.
What a
I
pleasure.
appreciate it. Thank you. An honor to be here.
Master over here.
We started this, I think it was 3 years ago. We were just young to this, you know what I mean? But we just thought it was a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And getting you guys on the podcast for us was like nerve-wracking. We look up to everybody but it became so easy for us because we sell your products. We know your products. We've been here, 4 times now. You know what I mean? It's nice to see the new contractors come and go. You guys educate them because that's why we're doing this podcast. We sell to contractors, and that's primarily what we want to do. We want to educate our contractors that buy from us by kind of expanding out throughout the country and seeing what's going on.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? With new products, all that stuff. So
Very cool. I love it. I'm an education guy. I'm an eternal student.
Nice.
I could never stop learning, so it's awesome. I love it. And this is the new format, right?
It is, yeah.
I mean, you spend a lot of times driving between projects and things. You throw on some podcasts and you kick back and you learn something. It's great.
You
And
do.
you're a busy guy, so it's nice to have the opportunity to get you on here.
Yeah, I appreciate
Learn
it.
some
Yeah.
stuff from you. Why not?
It's just got back from Texas and I head off to Arkansas in a couple days.
Wow, a lot of traveling.
Yeah, you got it.
How many years you been with the company now?
This is my 30th year.
Wow.
30th year.
Yeah,
Holy
crazy. I started in 1993 and we were working in a garage the size of this room.
You and Greg?
cow. You were one of the OGs,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah,
with Greg, right?
Exactly.
And tell us how far you've come with the company.
Oh, my
30
gosh.
years. Where did it all start, basically?
Gosh, that's a really good question. So where did it all start? I was freshly out of college. I was working on started my master's degree in marine biology and coastal zone management. I have a degree in zoology, so I wanted to kind of take it to the next level. I always loved water, and within the zoology degree, I specialized in limnology, which is the study of freshwater ecosystems. Yeah. So pond stuff is right up my alley, right? But I was working as an environmental chemist at the time. So it was interesting for a while, and I got, all of a sudden, I hit this plateau, and I'm like, I can't, my life flashed before my eyes. I'm like, do I really want to do this for the rest of my career, be stuck in a laboratory? And I'm like, I'm newly married, and I started talking to my wife, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do this. If this is what my
Right.
degree is going to bring me,
Yeah.
I'm not a lab person. I'm a field guy. I worked construction all through high school, all through college, even grammar school, cutting grass, raking leaves, pushing snow, whatever it took. I love getting my hands dirty, and I spent my times in the rivers and creeks and things like that. So as I was working as this environmental chemist, my wife found an article in a local newspaper. It was about Aquascape. They were doing a talk at a local public library, and it was Greg's father doing the talk because Greg was still in college at the time. Yeah. And they were just trying to educate consumers about backyard water features. So she saw that article and she's like, you got to go check this out. So I went there and I fell in love with the message of working with nature.
Right.
And, that kind of really rung true into my heart because that's what I studied all through college, and that's where my passion always lied.
Yeah, it's so crazy because I watch your Instagram or your social media, and I know that, you're very hands-on with everything. But for me, too, and I don't know much about the science of things,
Yep.
but your verbiage and everything and the way you bring the science to Aquascape is truly amazing.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah.
I appreciate it.
And I love to watch you travel. So, for example, going to Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And just watching you observe all the natural whether it be springs or waterfalls and stuff, how does that influence you on a day-to-day?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's everything to me.
Right.
You know, I mean, it really is. So using nature as a template, I mean, it's perfect, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's such a diversity of stuff out there. And if you really stop and pay attention and kind of look at what's happening, you could learn a ton. So biomimicry techniques, you know, remove water from the system and look at a dry creek bed, and try to imagine where the water actually flows, and then come back at different times of the year, and you can see how the water changes things. And it's just such a highly diverse habitat. And, you know, from a biological perspective, it just brings, it brings so much life, you know, to everything. And again, I'm going to jump down a little philosophical, you know, kind of rant here for a second. But, you know, I believe water is like being near water is hardwired inside of us. Yeah. So go back, 1,000 years ago, hunters and gatherers, right?
Yep.
Before we had cities and that type of stuff. If you were a nomadic tribe and you were looking for a new place to plant a flag, it would be by a river.
Yeah.
It would be by a
Or a
lake.
creek bed or something. Yes, yeah.
Because you needed a water source.
Yeah.
If you wanted to flourish, if you had animals, you know, even if for your own personal use, agriculture, all that stuff, every major city is founded on either a river or a lake. At least traditionally. Now they're popping up all over the place in the middle of a desert. But now we could extract water from the ground, so it's a little different. But I think it's hardwired inside of us.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we have this visceral connection where we want to be by it. So I love kind of thinking about all that stuff and how we could actually bring that little bit of an aquatic piece to every property around the world.
Yeah. Now you talk about Aquascape itself and the natural version of water features, or, you know, creek beds or something just natural. How close does it come to a natural water feature? You know what I mean? You guys been doing this for years.
We have.
It's basically what you're trying to imitate.
Right.
The whole
It
grand
is.
scheme of things.
It is. And, you know, so is it 100% natural? So we're putting in a rubber membrane to hold the water in place. So we do lose, there's a lot of biological activity that actually happens down in the subsoils of a river or a lake or something like that. So we're kind of losing that connection. Yeah. So we're not getting natural groundwater flow coming into it. We're just relying on precipitation. So there is a little bit of a disconnect. But what we're trying to do is we are trying to set up a living, breathing ecosystem. Our stocking rates are going to be much higher. You know, if you look at the ocean, and if you were to take the volume of water for the number of animals in there, it's going to be a crazy volume of water for every one animal. We're packing a lot into a small space, which is why we have to have a little bit more filtration, circulation, that type of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, most of this is like speaking Spanish to me with all the verbiage going on here. Let's switch it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you do travel a lot.
Yep.
We've seen you do some big names, Shaq to name one of them. What do you think's one of your coolest jobs that you've done personally in the last 30 years?
Wow. Some of the coolest jobs I've done. You know, there's a bunch of different ones for different reasons. I'll talk about just one of my favorite projects in general. A project down in South America, just outside of Bogota, Colombia. It's in a little town called Villavicencio, Colombia. And when we had our TV show, we were on Nat Geo Wild. That TV station was very popular in Colombia at the time, and we were contacted by the owners of a potential new shopping center. So they were developers, and they wanted to build this beautiful shopping center right on the edge of the Colombian rainforest, but they wanted to make it look like the rainforest cut its way right through the middle of this shopping center. So we started talking, and I'm like, I don't know if we're going to go to Colombia, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's going to be expensive. You know, kind of kept pushing him off. And he's like, all right, I tell you what if I fly myself up? We sit down. I want to see Aquascape, get to know you a little bit better. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So he flew up. We showed him around some projects, and we really hit it off. And what I loved about it was he is a nature guy as well. So when I've done other commercial projects, it's not it's almost an absence of nature what they're looking for. So they're just looking for something clean, something sterile, something simple. And what we were bringing in was like life. We were going to bring an Amazonian river system right through the stinking middle of this shopping center. And they were all into it. And I'm like, you know, there's also a lot of layers of complexity and stuff. He's like, I tell you what, he's like, you have free reign. I'm going to give you the spot. He's like, the budget's the budget. I don't care what the cost is. He's like, I want what I want. Yeah. And he's like, I know you guys are the ones that can pull it off. So we started collaborating, coming up with ideas, hand-picking boulders from the Andes Mountains, going down to the rivers, looking for fish that are going inside of here, getting the river rock right out of the river, going into the jungle, finding the right plants, exploring all this stuff. I mean, it was just unreal. And still to this day, that was built back, that's 7 years old now. And it is phenomenal. I mean, it's just unreal.
What does it take to get Ed the Pond Professor to a job? Is it money? Is it them pitching this beautiful thing that you want to be involved with? I mean,
gosh, that's another good one. You know what? From a business perspective, obviously there's always going to be a monetary thing to it, but there has to be a cool story. So I love doing unique stuff. I love challenges because every challenge you learn from it. Yeah. So like a lot of the products and a lot of our processes that we currently use today are modifications that we've had to make because we came across problems. We've had a lot of stuff fail over the years, like a lot, and that's how you learn.
So processes are still changing to this day with Aquascape.
Absolutely. They have to. Yeah. You have to constantly evolve yourself. And
that's why it's going to be a business that's never going to go out of style or any. It's just always going to flourish one way or the other. But it takes guys like you to do it.
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting. So, obviously it takes a massive team, but being involved with Greg from the very beginning and seeing, working side by side and figuring out some of these processes and just watching the entire thing kind of evolve. Yeah. It has put me in a really unique position because I have an interesting knowledge base that goes back very, very far. So I know, like why a lot of the products were created and what it takes to actually pull that off. So like a lot of people see, again, just a simple skimmer device and you take it for granted. You're like, it just works. But there's actually a ton of science and testing and products failed and succeeded and modified and just cut stuff up and Frankenstein models of things to make them work. And that's actually the fun stuff. And those are the things that I like.
When you first started with Greg, and there was that transition between Greg building, right? Mm-hmm. And then you kind of took over that, right?
Yep.
And there was a transition between Greg letting you take that over, but you both had different styles.
Absolutely.
Right? And how hard it was for Greg to let you evolve into you, right? And be a name and be that brand of Aquascape. And I think we talked about it with Greg, and he goes, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you were amazing, and he let you have at it.
It was. So that is definitely Greg's gift. Yeah. He knows his limitations. He knows, as the owner, what he needs to do to stay out in front of things. And if he would have kept himself in the field on a daily basis, we wouldn't be sitting here today in this facility.
And he knows that.
We wouldn't. It's impossible. So I brought a different skill set in, it was we're a good yin and yang for each other. That's for sure.
There's another guy involved in this too. That's been here 28 years.
Yeah, Brian.
I know Brian is a big part of this place.
Brian's a busy guy too. We didn't get him on the podcast today.
Yeah, what happened? He forgot about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he may have.
We got Ed the Pond Professor.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
No, Brian, Greg, and I, we've done some cool stuff. We've traveled the world together. We've done projects everywhere. I mean, I have 2,000 plus projects under my belt in the 30 years, all over the world.
That's a lot of lifting.
Do you guys work together, or do they like to keep you guys separate from other job sites?
We don't work together nearly as much as we used to, and it's just because it's divide and conquer. Yeah. It's like we have a lot of crossover between each other, so we're better off if we kind of split up. And I do a lot of stuff out of state. Brian, most of his focus is in the Chicagoland area.
Wow.
How did he get so lucky to stay in Chicago all the time?
Or not so lucky? I don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When Greg's talking about Utah.
You got a wife. How does she like all the traveling that you do?
So my wife was HR director of Aquascape years ago. Okay. So she kind of grew up side by side. She started with us when we were in the garage. So she was part of that initial stuff. So she understands the value and the importance of travel and what I do. But what she wants to have input on is the number of travel days. And she's like, has certain blackout dates. Like, okay, you have to be home for this, and this. Be around for, certain events, that type of thing. So, but she's very understanding, and she knows it's also my passion as well. So she's like, I know you like getting out there exploring, and there's only so many unique projects you can do in the Chicagoland market. Yeah. So she's like, you got to take those on, so if you have to travel, it is what it is.
And I know you do a lot of things worldwide. And and we talked about this earlier when we were talking. It's just what drives me insane to watch is all the animals you come across, you know, and where you go, you say Colombia or wherever, Puerto Rico or whatever, and jumping into these waters and all these species that I'm scared of that you actually hold in your hands and stuff like that. Can we touch base on all the animals you come across? And I'm sure there was a learning curve. To a few of these animals, right? So give us a couple instances.
Gosh, I don't even know where to start with it.
What about some crocodiles or some alligators?
So there is a really unique story. God, I'm trying to even remember what year it was. It's 15 years ago. I'm just going to say maybe a little bit more than that. We had a good customer down in Louisiana, and he had a buddy who had an airboat, and he's like, and he reached out to Greg and I, and he's like, how would you guys like to go and jump on alligators? He's like, we're not going to hurt them. You're going to jump on the back of it. You're going to wrangle it. You're going to lift it up, take a couple pictures. We let it go and go on to the next one. Both Greg and I are like, hell yeah, we're in. So
where me and Chris would be like, nah,
are you out of your mind?
So oddly enough, so all of a sudden this guy makes it happen. He's like, all right, the dates are booked. He's like, you guys are coming down. And this is the type of thing that happens at like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Did you go out there?
2 a.m.
After having a couple of beers, before you head on out there, you're driving through this swamp, and he turns all the lights off, and you just take flashlights, and you look across the water, and you see thousands of eyes looking at you.
I'm getting nervous
like
already.
Thousands of eyes.
No
like,
way.
You're like, what in the hell is this? I mean, it's just super freaky. It's got all these stars above and all these lights, in front of you. It's all the eyes of either large, huge, giant frogs and alligators.
Wow.
Like everywhere.
Wow.
So he's like, okay. So we're like, all right, what's the deal with this? And and we're listening to the Airboat Captain, which you guys seen the movie The Waterboy?
Oh, yeah.
So you know the coach from The Waterboy?
Yes, yep.
I think that was our airboat operator. Like, we could not understand a word this dude said, like nothing. And he's giving us direction. I'm like, dude, I have no idea what this guy just said. So we had an interpreter, thankfully. So our buddy's there. He's like, all right, let him listen to Arthur. He's like, this is what you got to do. I'm like, all right. So he's like, we're gonna go up. We're gonna put a light on one of these alligators. We're gonna turn the motor off, and we drift right up to it. He's like, you have like 1,000th of a second. You're going to stand on the front and you're going to look at it. And the alligator's going to be curious. So he's not going to take off right away because they don't know there's any predators out there in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So they're going to be like, all right, what the hell is this thing coming at me? And then he's like, you have a split second to determine how many inches are between the eyes. And I'm like, why do you have to understand that? He's like, if it's 6 inches in between the eyes, that means it's a 6-foot gator. So you look at the space between the eyes. He's like,
goodness.
Don't ever jump on one that's 6 foot or more. He's like, that thing is going to seriously hurt you. He's like, you want to go for like a 4 to 5 footer or something like that. I'm like, all right. But again, you're looking at it from 10 feet away and you're like,
looking
all right,
at you.
Is that 6 inches? What is that? How much space is in between?
My goodness.
You shut the thing off and then you leap on it, you straddle it, and you hope the water's shallow. So you pin it down in the mud and you got to get your hands right behind kind of his neck and jaw.
Yeah.
And they thrash like crazy.
Are they strong suckers or what?
Like ridiculously strong, like crazy
You got
strong
me
for their
sweating
size.
over here, by the way.
Oh man, no, I mean it's super intense.
God.
They thrash, the tail slapping all over the place, the head's going back and forth, and all of a sudden after about 30 seconds, they just go limp. Because they're tired. They're tired.
Yeah.
So they just burn all that energy to try to get away. So you got to have like a death grip on it,
Right.
which you will because your heart is like,
Adrenaline's kicking at that point.
It's life or death.
oh yeah, for sure you are. So you're just holding on for dear life. And then all of a sudden it stops. You lift it up, you take a picture, you let it go, and you move on to the
I'm
next one.
surprised all the other alligators don't attack you. Attacking
Well,
their brother.
I think, you know what? All
get
the
scared away?
commotion, everything just poof, takes
Go
off.
away.
And then you have to go to a new spot to go for another one. So we were there. We had
Now,
a
was
big
this an
group of us.
Aquascape initiation or
This
something?
was, yeah, I know. It totally is. I mean, that's exactly, hey, if you're a real pond guy, you got to
Yes.
jump on a gator, right?
Wow.
So Greg jumps on one, and he had his visor on. He always walks around with that pond guy visor,
Yep.
and he goes underwater, and his hat starts going off. So he lets go of the gator to try to grab his hat, and then he had only one hand on the alligator. So he's grabbing the hat, and the thing turned and grabbed him in the arm. Not too bad. Like he's got a scar. He's got a pretty. You got to ask him today.
Oh my!
He's got a pretty wicked scar on his right arm because
he went for the
let go.
hat.
And then obviously the gator got away. So that one wasn't bad. So we kept going out stupidly enough. We're like, all right, well, let's go for more. That was a fluke. And then Dave Kelly, our product development. So he jumps in, and he was kind of in a little bit awkward position.
Yeah.
He grabbed the gator instead of behind the jaw, he grabbed it behind the front arms. And these things are like a snake. The thing turned like 180 degrees and it grabbed him good. Like it shredded his arm. Like we ended up in an emergency room.
Yeah.
That was.
Did you expect any different, honestly?
No, you really exactly. That's what everybody says. They're like, well, yeah, you're acting like you're surprised, and I'm like, well, I guess.
Do you laugh at that, or is those one days you're like, I don't know why we did that?
Yes, exactly. I don't know why, but if Greg said we're going to do it again, I'd be like, all right, I got to do it again.
I can't even imagine.
So we got the alligators. We got a lot of turtles.
Tons. And so we're going on a turtle trip this week to move hundreds of 100 to 150 pound alligator snapping turtles. They're just coming out of hibernation right now, or it's called brumation this time for reptiles. So they're starting to get a little active, and that's our concern. If it's a little too warm and these guys are active, it could be dangerous.
I love turtles, man. They're awesome.
They're so awesome. So awesome.
Tell us about the one you got down here.
So Woody is our turtle that we got down here, and he was a rescue. He came from he was rescued from the from a food market where people down south are going to capture and kill alligator snapping turtles for the turtle meat, and he was rescued from that. So he is. We know the owner that had him for 30 years, and we've had him for like 4 or 5 now. So we've had him. We've known where he's been for the past 35 years.
We were talking to you a little bit earlier. Tell us about what you have going on in Louisiana coming up here.
It's going to be nuts. So draining down a half-acre pond full of muck and mud, and it's a relocation program because all these alligator snapping turtles are there's too many in this one lake. And the adult males get very territorial, so they're like beating the crap out of each other. Like there's fatalities all the time from these big turtles.
No, this is a natural.
Well, it's on a farm.
Okay.
But like the Department of Natural Resources will be involved in it, and they want to tag some stuff and do some measurements and that type of stuff. Yeah. So we're going to they're digging a new pond to relocate some of these turtles to, and so we're going to be part of that circus, I think, this weekend.
Those are probably going to be pretty big too.
These things are going to be huge.
How are you going to lift those?
We have no
suction
idea.
Cups, mini excavators.
We were talking about getting those grabos.
Yes, that would be. That's actually a great idea.
We were talking about the suction cups, like the suction grabs.
Probably safer, powerful. Right?
It would be 1,000 times safer, but it kind of takes the fun out of things, I guess.
Those snapping turtles are no joke either.
No,
I've seen them bite the tips of shovels off.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, they get their bite.
Dude, where did you see that?
Their PSI is crazy.
Really?
My neighborhood.
Ridiculous.
There was a creek, and I used to save turtles all the time, and I always had a shovel in the back of my truck, and I'm not getting near one of those things. So I'd pull over, I'd get out, and I'd try to like shove it with a shovel, and
it would bite it.
Bit the tip of my shovel off.
Oh my goodness!
A steel shovel, like it was nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big boy, but
so
at least I saved it.
But you talk about all these animals. How important are animals to like these ponds and to the to what you're building?
Sure. So I think they're very important because when you look at an aquatic ecosystem, it's supposed to have life.
Right.
You look at a swimming pool, it's sterile. Yeah. Like there's nothing living inside of it. But humans, we've adapted like. Sterile water is a man-made thing that's only been around for 60 or 70 years, probably since the 50s. Yeah. When swimming pools took off, kind of. So before that, it was all spring water, it was natural systems. But animals are very critically important to it. And when you look at a natural aquatic ecosystem, so there's an area where the water meets the land. It's known as a riparian habitat. Mm-hmm. It is the most biologically diverse habitat on planet Earth. More species of plants and animals live in that little zone than anything else. So by designing and building stuff, we are encouraging life to go inside of it. So some of it we're going to put there ourselves, but the rest of it, we're going to kind of leave it up to nature and let nature take its course. And we get some pretty cool stuff. Like we've had projects up in the mountains of California where we've had black bears come in and eat all the fish.
Yeah.
Like just walk into one of our natural ponds or one of our ecosystem ponds and just eat the fish out. We've had bald eagles. Yep. We've had ospreys. Down south, we have had alligators. We've had all different types of snakes and beavers, muskrats, you name it. Mink.
I know where we are in upstate New York, those blue herons come down and take all of the fish. You got to put you guys provide those nets to go over, so you definitely have to do that. You see those big... They got the blue herons with the big beaks.
Yeah, they eat everything.
Next thing you know, all your fish are gone.
Exactly.
Yeah, you spend big money on fish, and come out the next day and they're all gone.
Yeah.
No one
And they're
wants
just
that.
waiting for them.
Yeah. So we got it. So whenever we know that that's a huge issue in the
Yeah.
area, we'll make the ponds a little deeper because herons are a wading bird.
Oh, okay.
So they wade in water that's about 18 to 20 inches deep. So if we know it's going to be an issue, we'll make our ponds 3 feet or more in depth. And then that will discourage that species from going into that pond.
Wow.
Like they can't walk up to their neck. It's like they just
Right.
walk in with their feet.
Yeah, that is true because
Yeah.
the ones we did were on our job site, and it was only about 18 inches.
Yeah,
And they took
it
all the fish.
Wasn't deep
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. If it's not deep enough,
I mean,
they're going to
technically, don't you want a pond deeper too for fish, especially like in our climate, Northeast, with it
Freezes
freezing?
over.
Yeah.
You probably want a pond that's going to go deeper.
Yeah, if you can get away going deeper, it definitely helps. It keeps it warmer in the winter, cooler in the summertime. But there are certain cities have regulations where they can only be 18 to 24 inches deep. So you have to understand your area. Yeah. Like where I live here on the outskirts of Chicago, I can go as deep as I want, and they don't. It's all farm country. They can care less.
I mean, most of your pond kits, that's what you recommend anyways too, right? Is that 18-inch minimum depth?
Yeah, that's a minimum. 18 to 24 inch is pretty typical for most water gardens. So that's like you're gonna have some plants, you're gonna have some fish. It's a little bit of a blend. It's good for most like suburban and urban environments, but if you really are getting into a koi hobby and want big fish, I'd recommend going deeper, 3 to 5 feet,
3 to 5.
6 feet, something like that. Yeah,
Even in like the Northeast climate
Exactly.
with freeze.
Yeah. And one of the things that we'll do in the Northeast or in really, really cold, like we have projects up in way northern Calgary,
Where it's really cold.
Cold,
Even worse
like,
than where we are.
Yeah, Edmonton, Canada, just ridiculously cold.
Winnipeg.
Yeah, that's brutal. I mean,
Brutal. Negatives. It's
I've been to Quebec once, and it was like minus 14 degrees.
Yeah. I thought it was bad where we live. Imagine that.
No, awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful. But what we'll do is we'll make sure the pump goes down below frost line. So the whole pond doesn't have to be.
Okay,
So we'll
yeah.
do like a deep reservoir to make sure that we have that. We'll pick up the geothermal heating and cooling action of that deeper water. So we could have like a pocket. That doesn't have to be the whole thing.
So it's basically an underground heater almost.
It's exactly
from
what
being
it
so
is.
low, yeah.
Yep, it's exactly. And that's super effective. It
Yeah.
works really,
It's like
really
a
well.
frost line almost,
Yeah.
you would figure, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So our frost line here in Chicago is about 48 inches.
Yeah.
You're probably
Same-
48 plus
yeah,
or so.
similar, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, the pond right by our front door when you come walking in here,
Yes.
that has a 6 foot deep reservoir where that waterfall dumps down inside, and that pond stays
That's
perfect,
beautiful.
perfect
Get
all
outta
year
here,
round. But that's a
really?
deep water reservoir, and we don't have any issues.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you guys, as Aquascape, really made a name for yourself. And I know Chris brought it up a little bit earlier, and I've watched a little bit of it. That Shaquille O'Neal project, how fun was that? And is it kind of cool just to, somebody of that stature, or, I mean,
How big
it's just
is he
kind
in
of
real
fun
life?
to me.
Is he giant or what?
He is the biggest man I've ever seen in my life.
What's he wear, like a size 24 shoe or something?
Yes, I think it is.
And he just seems like he seems like such a great guy too.
He is. You know what? He came out every single day we were out there. He would always talk with us and stuff, and he was just a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah.
So he was always like commenting on our work ethic. You know, we were there before the sun was up, and we left when it was dark. He's like, "You guys are nuts." He's like, "You guys." And he's been a part, and if you obviously follow him, but he's been a part of, gosh, I don't even know how many different reality TV series where he's had custom cars, motorcycles. He's got a custom fish tank from the Tanked Guy. He's got a treehouse from Treehouse Masters. He's done all these different things. He's like, everybody says they're doing a three-day project, 3-day build for this reality show. Yeah. And he's like, it usually takes 3 weeks. He's like, you guys said it was 3 days, and it was 3 days.
Took 3 days.
He's like that. He's like, it was unbelievable to actually watch it actually happen on that scale. He's like, it was just insane.
Now,
and we're working on a second one. Actually, I was just at his house a month and a half ago.
Wow, you've become really good friends with him, or at least business friends.
Yeah,
or,
exactly. So we're going back down. I'll be down there in May, starting the construction, and we're gonna have it completed by June 9th.
And is there anything kind of unique about his projects that kind of make it exciting to do?
Are you allowed to talk about it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
No, he's easy going where we don't have any NDA agreements or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's so this current one that we're working on, it's going to have a series of like trick shots for mini golf and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we're doing all types of cool stuff with different elevations, and we're working with a company called Court Dreams, and that's what they specialize in. So we're going to be working side by side with them, and we're going to have chip shots going over over the water to like a little island area.
He's a big golfer too.
He is. He loves golf, and I mean he's a big kid. He just likes to play and just
yeah.
have fun and just do cool stuff. So
Yeah.
Clubs are probably double the length
Oh,
of ours. They're ridiculous.
I couldn't even imagine.
Imagine getting fitted for those. And
No,
then finding golf shoes. How do you find golf shoes? Do you wear Shaq golf shoes?
Well, you can
Remember
just see the entrance gate to his
Yeah.
place is pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It is super awesome. And, it's funny when he would pull up in his car, it's like you have to do a double take because when you look at it first, you intuitively look at the driver's window and there's no one there because he's sitting in the back seat driving. There's nobody in.
That's right.
He can't, all of his cars are custom made. He needs that much space.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's
so
great.
funky.
Man, holy cow.
So Greg's what? Almost 6 foot tall,
Yeah.
230 pounds. He looked like a child standing
Yeah, I
next
seen
to him.
that.
Like a little child.
I seen that cardboard
crazy.
thing in the office over there with him, and he's like, he's definitely like a foot taller than he is.
That's great.
Oh, it's
It's
awesome.
got to be a cool experience.
It is.
Any other celebrities?
Yeah,
that you've
well,
done
we're
some
working
cool-
on a project right now. I was just in Texas with Adrian Grenier. So he's the guy from Entourage.
Yeah.
You know the
Oh
TV
yeah,
show.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Vinny from Entourage.
I watched that whole show.
I was with him all last week.
Wow, that's great.
Super cool dude, very chill. Made us burgers, cooking out on his back patio for us. Went
Just
out to pizza
normal
with him.
dudes, right?
100%. Just loves life and wants to learn. So we're doing some cool stuff. He's creating like a farm. Well, he grew up in Brooklyn, lived in LA for a while. Now he's got this property in Texas, and it's like a farm, but he's never farmed his entire life. So he's just like, I'm just trying to figure out everything. So I have no idea what I'm doing. So he's showcasing all that, and he's doing all types of organic stuff, and he's going to try to have like a farm to table type facility at his place. So, all the food is going to be locally sourced and grown on his property. The pond that we're doing, we're going to try to fix up an existing pond that he has. We're going to filter the dirty water. We're going to run it through a aquaponic type system. We're going to grow some vegetables inside inside this ponding area, and we're going to grow tilapia fish for food. And so it's going to be pretty sweet, man. It's going to be awesome.
Wow.
So unique. That's a cool experience. That makes all that traveling really worth it, I think.
Absolutely.
Now, working a lot of hands-on, what's the future of Ed the Pond Professor and Aquascape? I mean, I know it's, it keeps evolving and stuff, but what's the future, the five-year outlook for you guys?
So that's a great question. So, I mean, we're always looking to expand, obviously. Yep. So education is really big. So vlogs, podcasts, social media, all these different avenues of just educating people of what we do. And I think what's really unique right now is we're seeing this big boom and residential properties everywhere. And people are investing more money in them because, they're doing homeschooling now because, just the state of our world is kind of hectic. So people are spending more time at home. They might be working from home now, or at least one parent or sometimes both. So they're investing a lot of time and money into their properties to really kind of personalize it. So we're seeing a huge jump. So
you see a lot more of those recreational ponds and stuff,
we really
right?
do.
Yeah,
those are really, really cool. And the recreational concept, it allows people to invest a decent amount of money into their property. But, like northern climates, like where you're at, where we're at, you have maybe 75 days a year, where you're going to be enjoying an outdoor pool. So with a recreational pond, it's 365. I mean, you could ice skate on it in the wintertime if you want. You have a fire pit by it. You can kick back. You can have some drinks. It becomes an integral part of the overall design versus a swimming pool. You're going to have it covered for 2/3 of the year. I mean, it's literally covered up, and it's just it's taking up space. It's not usable.
What about the cost factor between, let's say, a gunite pool that could cost you $160,000, $180,000 compared to a recreational pool? I mean, cost-wise, what are you looking at?
That's a good question. So we're equal or greater than the same size pool. And the reason being is we'll just say a 20 by 20 swimming pool.
Yep.
We're going to need not only the 20 by 20 area for the pool, but we're going to need another 20 by 20 area for the filtration system. So we need double the amount of space in order to pull it off. But again, it's going to be different because we're going to have waterfalls and streams, and,
Yes.
Design
walkways.
It's a completely different. But the footprint is going to be much grander because of that filtration component, which is 100% natural.
So the future looks good.
It looks awesome. Yeah, no, it really does. And then you have rainwater capture systems have been consistent. Precipitation patterns are crazy all over the country, but capturing rainwater, utilizing it for irrigation.
What about that most recent job you did? It was a swampy area. What was that whole project about?
Which one? I've been in a swampy area.
I
don't even know. There's been a bunch of them.
I'm drawing a blank on it now.
Was it just like last week?
You had all the aqua blocks in there.
That was Adrian's place. That was a dude down in Texas. So that's Adrian Grenier. Yeah. So that's high groundwater. So he has actual natural springs on that property. So we're trying to tap into some of the natural groundwater and all.
Did it help?
It did. Well, we won't be done with that until the end of March. So right now it's still infrastructure. Yeah. So we still got a long way to go on that thing. Yeah, but it's a really cool, and actually that's going to be open to contractors to come out and to learn. So that's like a hands-on type of an event. Like the stuff we have happening here right now is kind of more classroom. Yeah. So this is going to be a hands-on training project in Texas at Adrian's property, where we're going to show step by step how to do these aquaponic systems and how to revitalize old farm ponds and stuff like that.
It's nice that he allowed that too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Kind of a partnership.
It is, and he's really big in education.
Yeah.
So he's like, I want to teach people. He's like, I want to give back.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Ed, this conversation was as refreshing as those natural springs in your projects. We appreciate you talking to us.
Yeah, man, it's been a pleasure.
We definitely learned a few things from you too.
Nice, awesome. Me as well.
Welcome to the Outdoor Project Podcast.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, have a good one.